Hello, welcome to Taxpayer Alert. I'm Al Segala. I'll be your moderator for this session. I'm also president of the Calaveras County Taxpayers Association, and we hope these programs can really help the taxpayer. We have, for over 100 episodes now, been able to reach some of the most knowledgeable people in the county about what's happening in government, what's happening to your taxes, and we've been blessed by an addition this time, Joshua Pack, who's our Director of Public Works in the county, who also has been on the show before, and he's a great addition to knowing about our county. Joshua, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
This is a handshake.
It's a 5-6 foot handshake, social distancing handshake. It's good to see you, Al. We miss you. We miss seeing you at the board meetings. I know you represent the Taxpayer Association really well. And we miss seeing you around campus.
Well, maybe after the return to physical meetings, I'll be able to return, and because I do enjoy it. Yeah. And but now, Joshua, you've been here for a while. What are your feelings? A little bit about your own background here for self-introduction.
Yeah, and so I've had a chance to chat with you a couple times, and really enjoy it, and got a chance to know you a little bit better. I've been here for about 2 years now, and I serve as the Public Works and Director of Transportation here at Calaveras County. My background is foothill area, so I grew up up north in Nevada County, went to school at UC Davis, got my bachelor's in civil engineering, my master's in public administration, spent my first 12 years or 14 years cutting my teeth in the Bay Area, and moved back to the foothills with a prior agency, and then been with Calaveras the last couple of years. So it's been really enjoyable getting back to the foothills, the roots of my background, and getting a chance to interact again, solve problems for a community that I in particular can relate to.
Well, for 10 years I've been going to the Board of Supervisors meetings, and I've been hearing presentations from our Director of Public Works all during this time. And I have to say, you're the most organized person I've ever met.
and I have to say that $20 is in the mail. So.
Well, with that said, since we're so well organized, let's go to our first item.
Sure.
First question.
Yeah.
The Public Works budget impacts relating to COVID-19.
Yeah, and thanks for asking the question again. Thanks for having me. One of the interesting things, and it's on this impact in the pandemic, is all of the little tentacles that it's had an impact. And Public Works is not alone, especially with the shutdown that happened in mid-March. It really affected us. And the reason for that is we rely for our revenue to help maintain roads on gas taxes. And so for every gallon of gasoline that's sold, a certain percentage of that goes to the maintenance of roads in counties and cities. What happened in March with the big shutdown, in particular in urban areas, we saw reductions in overall statewide travel on our roads by 40 to 50%.
Wow.
And so when that happens, a corresponding decrease in gas taxes occurred. And so we've had a pretty big impact for us this year. We've made some estimates over next year on what we think the impacts are going to be based on prevailing trends. We think the impacts are going to be about $700,000 over the 2 years. That's the bad news. The good news is we've anticipated it, and I'd be lying if I said I anticipated COVID-19. No one anticipated that. What we did was anticipated some sort of economic downturn, and part of what my group and my team is really good at is spending within our means. And at the same time, keeping things in reserve in case, in a rainy day fund sort of thing. And
right.
So we've done that. Between the 2 years, we're in really good position to weather this storm for Public Works. And I have other concerns in the future, things like long-term trends, if this turns into a long-term recession. If the state decides they did borrow funds in 2010 Took them 10 years to pay it back, but if they decide to borrow funds from Public Works again, that's a concern. So, but part of my job is to kind of keep an eye on things. I talk with state leaders. I talk with our state legislative representatives in Sacramento on a biweekly basis. They provide updates, and the idea is if we do see trends going in the wrong direction, we can respond. But I think the good news is the public's not going to see any reduction in services or what we provide in terms of projects or programs as a result of this. At least in the short term. So it's a little bad news, but there's also a good news in there.
Is there federal money coming into the county in the category of COVID?
Yeah, there is some money, not necessarily for transportation. The CARES Act that was passed by Congress and approved by the president did release some money for the county. It's pretty discretionary on how the county can use it. So I believe the Board of Supervisors will be discussing opportunities to spend that money at next week's meeting. So if you're not doing anything Tuesday at 9 a.m., I would strongly suggest you to drop in and watch it. Transportation is not part of that. There's not specific earmarks. On the federal side, the House of Representatives, the Democrat-controlled House does have a bill. It does include some earmarks for transportation. It's likely not going to get through the Senate. I know there's been some discussions on the federal side about a separate infrastructure bill, kind of like similar to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 when they invested money to do road projects, etc. We're not there yet. I think if this continues, you may see some sort of package from that, but right now there's nothing immediately pending.
It seemed like we think there's no free lunch. And when the federal government spends money it doesn't have, it's borrowing from the future. Sometimes that's called the national debt. And we are apparently going way above the 22 trillion. Some people estimate maybe $5 more trillion. It's been said then that when the cost of this money exceeds the gross national product, this is how productive we are, then we could have problems in inflation, or maybe worse. And so, in looking at this kind of a problem, is there any hope for little counties if we have a sudden amount of inflation?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm going to tackle that a little bit from my direction of Public Works.
Now we can't do anything about it. We know it.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things too that I think a lot of laypersons may not know is the federal government can run deficits, they can run debt. State and local governments can't do that. Right. We have to balance our budgets. We have to stay within our means. It's a tenet that I think resonates well with the Taxpayers Association, and so that's where we see difficulties in that. I think, and I'll speak back to the recession last time if this does come prolonged. One of the things, and it's a philosophical argument on, is at the time where public agencies hunker down or public agencies reinvest in the community. Mm-hmm. One of the things that in the last recession, we did try to make a conscious effort to increase our investment in the community, not by outspending our means, but if we had projects that were ready to deliver them, because for two reasons. Number one is people need work. In order to stimulate the economy, a construction job, a $500,000, million, $2-3 million construction job, not only generates that money for the contractors and the workers, it also stimulates the economy for material providers and things like asphalt plants and the workers that work there. The local shops where all the contractors come in are serving them lunch and serving them dinner. There's this trickle down effect to all of our folks. So I do worry about inflation. Obviously, my spending dollars, we don't see a lot of, inflation doesn't necessarily reflect getting us more money. Right. A lot of times though, under the same scenario, when you see a stagnation in the market, if we're in a position to do so, we actually see a lot more competition and lower prices as a result. So, and I certainly am not asking for a recession. That's the last thing I do. Right. But it's one of those small silver linings in a recession where agencies who have been spending their money smartly, saving their money, putting it aside, and are in a position to deliver projects. By doing it, then you can benefit the community, help reduce the impact of a recession locally,
right.
and then deliver much needed projects and actually have some cost savings. So it's again, not advocating for a recession, but it is one of the silver linings. So that's one of the things, even though inflation is certainly a concern, that's some of the things that we can see as part of that.
Well, the main effect would probably be fuel costs and inflation. If they went significantly higher, that would affect your budget quite a bit.
Certainly would. We rely heavily on all of our equipment runs on. We have I think over half of the equipment in the county belongs to Public Works. Sheriffs have a lot too with their vehicles, but our heavy duty, they're not gas sippers like a Prius or
right.
you know, they use a lot of gasoline. So we have a pretty hefty budget, and inflation that would cause the rise of gasoline would have a significant impact on us.
And you can't build roads with a pogo stick.
No, not tried. We haven't tried, but we're not planning to do that anytime soon.
All right, now the next item is the historic 2020 construction schedule. 19 projects this year. Wow.
Yeah, and to be blunt with your viewers, if I'd have known that COVID-19 was going to happen, we probably wouldn't have moved forward anticipating 19 projects. In a typical year, a rural county or city like the size of ours might deliver 3 to 5 projects, and that would be a normal year.
Yeah.
19, even in a normal year, it's historic for us. We've never come anything close to that. It's the size of an agency much, much bigger than ours. And there's a lot of much needed projects. Some of the disaster recovery projects we're working on,
right.
Not only, and we're talking 3 different disasters, we're talking the 2015 Butte Fire.
Right.
We had 2 federally declared disasters in 2017 related to the winter storms. And then in 2019, we had the Valentine's Day winter storms that were also a federally declared disaster. And so we have some projects in there. We have the first of a long run of a new paving program identified to invest about $20 million in our roads over the next 5 years.
Right.
Some of the roads we're hitting on theirs include Parrott's Ferry, Murphy's Grade Road. We're hitting Burson Road here starting in September.
How about Skunk Ranch?
Skunk Ranch is not on the list for this year,
Darn.
but we do have, we've taken an approach to move around in different districts, and so we're next year you're going to see a lot a little bit in Murphy's, a lot in the Valley Springs area, Rancho Calaveras. We have $1 million for County Service Area 1, serving Rancho Calaveras, the roads in there.
What percentage of this is contracted out?
So we contract most all of our paving work.
Okay.
We don't do it in-house. It's not that our guys can't do it. Contractors do. They have the latest and greatest equipment. They've been doing it for 35 years. Right. And so our philosophy is, if it's part of a repair, we do what's called the preparation work. Right. It's, fixing the potholes, putting extra pavement down to kind of get the surface ready. And then when the actual paving work's in, we have the contractors do it. And so I would say, of that, well over 80 to 90% of that is done by contractors, and the remaining work is the prep work, or vegetation, fixing old culverts and drainage ditches. Our road crews do that for the month or two leading up to the project.
Maintenance of existing roads is probably 80-90% in-house.
Yeah, we do most all of that in-house, and that's what our guys are good at. We have a really talented crew of road maintenance workers, and they're truly jack of all trades. They do something different every single day, whether it's prepping roads or putting new culverts in or fixing ditches and tree removal, vegetation removal. They do a little bit of everything. And there's a real need to continue to focus on core maintenance services.
Right.
We have 690 miles of road. We struggle. That's a lot of miles based on how many employees we have. We have enough work to do without having to try to become contractors as well. So we have a lot of really qualified contractors in Northern California that are local. We rely on them. They do a lot of really good work. And we partner with them. Sorry.
No, of the 19 projects for this year, most of the 19 projects are bigger projects?
Yeah, most of them are, I would say, moderately sized. And when I say moderately sized, I would say a project ranging from maybe $100,000, $150,000 up to $1 million. And so it's a pretty wide range, but most everything is in that range. And then we have a couple of bridge projects. Those are always pretty, one on Hogan Dam Road, one on Single Tree Drive. Both of those bridges tend to be a couple of $1 million when you build those. But most of them, like I said, are pretty small. A lot of repair work. We have a really cool project on Jesus Maria Road. We're actually going to grind up the old road. We're going to take a big grinder, grind up the old road in the road base, and then we're going to add cement to it. And by doing that, it makes a super hard, almost concrete-like surface. And then we're going to come over the top with a new road surface. And the goal on that is we've never done it before. The county's never done anything close to this. But we're saving some money over more traditional pavement methods, and the hope is this road will last 10 to 15 years or more before we ever have to touch it, or have put a significant effort in it. And that's a major road connecting a lot of small communities up in District 2, and so I'm excited about that project. It's also kind of a template for us as we start reinvesting into our communities and our infrastructure, giving us kind of a template of different tools we can use to do it better, do it more efficiently.
So you take the existing pavement that's in bad shape, you crunch it up in a machine, and then turn it into gravel, and then you add cement to that.
Yep.
And then after doing that, you add water.
No, so the cement additive, once it mixes in, you don't have to add that. You add what's called a rejuvenating agent or something, and it creates. But after you do that, you mix it all in together. You roll it down with a roller, and it becomes almost like a concrete surface.
Oh, okay.
And so
is it asphalt or?
So it's still asphalt technically. It's more road based than anything else. But it's it turns all. It's not going to be a traditional concrete surface, but the hardness of it almost emulates concrete. So it's really cool.
Is it Portland cement or bituminous?
So it's a Portland cement additive. So
okay.
Yeah, it's not a traditional concrete.
So it'll be kind of a hydraulic. It'll cure over time.
Yeah, it'll cure. I don't think it'll harden that much more. It's going to harden pretty quickly, but it should stay. I think the most important thing with this, and additionally being a much better road, is the level of maintenance we have to do, because that road traditionally we have to do a lot of spot maintenance. It's a little bit remote, so our crews, having guys go out there, takes quite a bit of time. And having a road that's in much better shape means it lasts longer, it's less maintenance, and we can focus our forces elsewhere that needs attention.
Yeah, and you have better base.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a cool project. I geek out on stuff like that, so it's it'll be good.
Okay, well, now we talk about road safety in the county.
Yeah.
Of course, that's important. Nobody wants to die on roads.
No. And I'm glad you asked that, and to get an opportunity to share with your folks. So Calaveras County, and I was surprised by this when I was looking at the information. Calaveras County, when you look at county roads compared to other counties in the state of California, when you look at our fatal and severe injury collision rates, we are the third highest county in the state of California.
Really?
Yeah. And the first thing I want to say is it's not through anyone's fault. Mariposa County, Alpine County, Amador County, Tuolumne County, all of our neighbors are also all in the bottom 10. And
we can't blame Public Works?
So you can't blame Public Works for that one. Maybe, sure, everyone, we get blamed for everything. So, the thing I want to highlight is it's not a good place to be. It's not necessarily, and part of it has to do with our alpine and, kind of rural nature. When you go off a road in Calaveras County, it's a lot different than if you go off a road in San Joaquin County.
Right.
The results of that action are much worse. But we have, especially as we kind of get through these disaster recovery projects, the next phase of projects we're working on is what I call systemic road projects that don't look at an intersection or they don't look at a curve. They look at dozens of miles, dozens of curves, hundreds of miles.
Right.
And so we have some projects coming on board, and our overall goal over the next 5 years is to reduce our fatal and severe injury collision rates by half, and to reduce our overall collision rates by 25% over the next 5 years. It's an ambitious goal,
right.
But we have a couple of projects. One of them is a road safety signage project. We're going under more than 200 miles of road, looking at updating, replacing, relocating somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,500 signs to make them more consistent. And the goal behind that is by having more accurate and predictable signage, drivers like you and I can make more predictable and accurate decisions, be educated on where they're driving and the conditions in which they're facing, make those more educated decisions, and maybe not go off a road or go through a curve too fast. And so that project will be constructed either in 2021 or 2022, and statistics have shown throughout the United States this project has a profound impact on safety. The other project that I kind of geek out on it, and we're talking about pavement surfaces, this is where I'm going to go with this. There's a special additive called a high friction surface treatment, and we've identified 28 curves at 21 separate locations throughout the county that have high injury collision rates, fatal and severe injury accidents. We're going to be targeting those locations, and we're putting, I know you're going to be shocked, a high friction surface on top of the road.
Is it like sand?
Yeah, it's actually like a chip seal. If you're folks are familiar, it's like a chip seal on steroids. It's super rough, and the idea behind it is having more friction as you go into curves allows you to better navigate that curve and actually stay on that curve where maybe during freezing conditions, poor weather conditions, you might slip off that curve. It actually, for those who, and I'm not suggesting not to replace your tires, but this actually adds extra. It's kind of like having super beefy tires. It kind of provides that additive. And as an example of that, there's a stretch of Highway 17 in the Bay Area that goes from up to Santa Cruz, and I don't know if you've ever driven that. It's really windy and not very safe. They had this one small section had 144 accidents over a 3-year period.
Wow.
They put high friction on, they had 0 accidents over the next 3 years.
That's incredible.
They show collision reductions from 40 to 90% or more throughout the United States wherever they put this.
And that area don't freeze.
And that, exactly. So this sort of project, and we are applying for a grant this month. We'll receive the grant. That'll be the end of the year. We'll hopefully do it next year. It might be 2022, but either scenario, these are the sort of projects we're looking at, these sort of large-scale projects to make a huge difference in safety for our residents. And the good thing or the bad thing is we'll never know the results of that. We'll know the overall collision rates, but someone who maybe would have lost their life 3 years from now going through a curve too fast and slips off, that person won't do that anymore. And so it's one of the hard things to quantify, but I know that we're saving lives by doing that.
Do you have a means of accounting for areas that are highly dangerous? In other words, this curve kills 10 people a year, this curve kills 3, or do you have anything like that?
We do. Well, fortunately, we have nowhere that kills 10 people. We'd call it a mass murderer if we did. And so we do. We have this really innovative program, and we work with the CHP. They provide us information, and we download that information. We have information going back 20 years. And so I can go back and I can put, for any stretch of road, I can do all sorts of things. I can find out the worst injury location throughout the county. I can find the place that has the most DUI related collisions in the county. I can look at the total amount of collisions for a particular intersection or road. I use that program at least once or twice a week when looking at things. As a matter of fact, I was in downtown Murphy's yesterday and I pulled it up and we're looking at some things we're doing down there, and found 11 collisions over the last 10 years in this one little stretch, and it helped kind of navigate the discussion I was having with the community on some of the issues in this small little section of road. And so it's a wonderful program, and we use it almost every single day in the decisions we make.
So that's a basis of planning, so that like the doctors say, above all else, do no harm. I guess yours is kind of similar. Above all else, reduce deaths.
Yeah, and I will say one of the things that we do really well here at Calaveras County, our staff and team, is the state and federal government have set aside a lot of money and have dedicated money to road safety and highway safety. And there are a lot of agencies who look at that and they try to take that money for their own projects, and they try to fit kind of a round peg in a square hole. We've adapted and gone, you know what, this is meant for safety. Let's find our locations that have the highest collision rates, and let's find projects to address those issues, not having a pet project here or there and trying to make this money work. Yeah. When you free yourself of that kind of bond, those shackles, and you go, I want to do a project that best benefits a number of roads, like the road audit, we're doing 200 miles of road. Right. You can really come up with some really ingenious projects that also have a huge benefit. I mean, no matter if you have the worst intersection in the county, which is Down on Oberyn's Ferry Road, we have 7 collisions there over the last 5 years. When you look at versus, even if you reduce that by 75%, that's 4 or 5 accidents. If I do one smaller project, signage replacement on 200 miles of road, we're talking 400, 500 accidents we're talking about. Even replacing a third of those or 10 or 15% of those, you can get way more bang for your buck by doing it that way. Not saying that the isolated projects are needed, but the big sort of systemic projects it's a new wave of projects that I am really excited about.
Our last item of discussion is State Route 4. We've got about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh man, this project.
State Route 4, Wagon Trail project.
Yeah, this has been a project that I think a lot of folks are familiar with. It's been on the books for a long time. We're on track to starting that project next year. Even though, and by the way, it runs from Copperopolis to Angels Camp. Folks familiar with Hunt Road and Pool Station Road, the curves. It's pretty windy out there.
Yeah.
It's called Wagon Trail because it was the original wagon trail route. So, modern highways don't typically follow wagon trail routes. They're curvy and windy, and they're used to horses going 5 miles an hour. And so this is an opportunity we're combining with the local council of governments and Caltrans working together to try to resolve those issues. We're anticipating that project hopefully to start late summer or fall of 2021. It'll probably be a couple of years, but realigning those sections to make them safer. Again, another effort to try and greatly improve safety. Plus, the connection from the Central Valley to Angels Camp and up the Highway 4 corridor, being able to improve that to make it safer for folks it helps tourism, it helps road safety. There's a lot of wins for that project.
How much would be completed next year?
So next year alone, only a portion. I'm not real sure. Maybe my guess is you won't see a lot done this year. I think 2022 you're going to see the bulk of the project. But the hope is to go this particular segment. We're looking from Hunt Road to Appaloosa.
Right.
It's not the whole stretch. The entire project's pretty pricey. I think the last estimate was somewhere in the $80 million range or so. This one's going to be about 13 and a half to 15. We're also pursuing some grants. We talked about grants previously. We're looking at some grants to try and augment that funding so we can deliver more of it. And so we'll find out more about those grants in the coming months.
So completion would be a couple of years?
Yeah, I would say optimistically 2022, realistically 2023. So I won't commit to 2022. I'd love to get it done by then, though.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I go on that road all the time.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, what do you see? What do you see for your department?
So first of all, I am super proud of my department. We do a lot of different things. We provide critical services for the community. I think in the last year and a half or last 2 years, what we've done and how we've been able to 19 projects. That's all hands on deck, from engineers to admin to the road maintenance workers to the fleet folks. The safety stuff I've talked about, that's a new generation for us to really focus on systemic roadway safety projects. And I think the other thing, and I think you've kind of learned about this with me, is to continue our transparency and honesty with the community. Like talking about these issues with budget and concerns with that, having those conversations with the public and with our elected officials. Yeah. Putting our heads in the sand is not an appropriate way to respond to that. It only makes the matters worse. So
we agree.
Yeah. So let's deal with them head on. Let's be proportionate. Let's not knee-jerk reaction and cut off our nose to spite our face. But let's be appropriate. Let's be deliberate. Let's have public interaction. We have our new paving program at the end of every year. We have a public hearing with that at the board, or a public workshop. Public is welcome to provide comments and feedback, and that's my goal, is to continue the path that we've done over the last couple of years.
Well, you've done a fantastic job. Thank you for this interview.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert. See you next time.